Sage Advice with Melissa is a new informative health and lifestyle show for you to gain knowledge and inspiration to help guide your journey to think, work, and live more powerfully. Whether you're trying to improve your life from a mental, physical, or spiritual journey, Sage Advice with Melissa Coleman, CEO of Sage Skincare, delivers weekly advice from the best experts to provide you with insightful suggestions to allow you to thrive with a better quality of life. It's her mission to guide you through the uncharted waters of health and wellness and to give you a voice on what can help improve your life and your mental, physical, and spiritual journey. Okay, audience, here's Melissa.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sage Advice with Melissa. I am your host, Melissa Coleman. You are catching us here on KXOK 102.9 FM and KWRH 92.9 FM. We're with you every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. And then you can follow us Monday through Fridays on My Genre Radio. We air there 7 to 8 a.m. and then again from noon to 1 p.m. All you have to do is search your city on My Genre Radio Network and our show, and then you will find us. We are also with you live every Thursday on YouTube. All you have to do is search for KXOK Radio, and we are there at 10 o'clock a.m. So you have plenty of opportunity to keep up with Sage Advice. As always, you can follow us on our socials at Sage Advice with Melissa. Is that correct, Miss Maddie? We are here today in our month of mental health. I have my beautiful co-host, Maddie King-Erger, with us. We have the beautiful Sheila Pride sharing today with us about mental health practices and movement and all of those wonderful things and how that helps all the things that we love here, our mind, body, and spirit. We're all about that here at Sage Advice with Melissa. So we're going to be talking about that today with you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you.
I'm so excited, especially after experiencing that wonderful Qigong practice that we did in the park yesterday and the beautiful ceremony after. We're going to share with you all of those amazing things, but I want to share a little bit about you.
Thank you.
We're going to toot your horn, Ms. Sheila. So Sheila Pride is the CEO and founder of Moksha.
Very good.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, very good.
Moksha Group, a business consulting, executive, and team coaching firm. She has over 15 years of experience as a clinical social worker, specializing in trauma recovery, and is also an expert in energy sciences such as yoga, qigong, somatic, and biofeedback therapies. Sheila is a master facilitator who applies neuroscience, compassion, and contemplative practice tools and techniques to help leaders, teams, and organizations across the country to realign, improve communication, and lead from their hearts. Sheila draws from the teachings of yoga science, shamanic studies, mindfulness, neurolinguistics programming, NLP. I know somebody else that does that. Cognitive restructuring and Gestalt.
Yes.
Okay.
You're doing so good.
Gestalt therapy to assist leaders and individuals in total transformation. Sheila is committed to helping leaders share what they learn with their families and communities. Sheila has taught at various universities, created international training curriculum, and conducted training nationally with corporations, advocacy groups, legislature. Oh, that's impressive, because that's where we need to go. State coalitions, hospitals, and human rights task forces. Sheila continues to work to support local community, teaching yoga, self-regulation, and somatic therapies in retreat and community settings. Sheila is an avid supportive of conscious companies, nature, and human rights, and she regularly supports nonprofit communities. She is also a member of the All Our Relations, a network of diverse women bringing harmony and healing to communities and the planet. Sheila's consultation, training, and coaching are designed to awaken the heart and soul of a leader and an organization, empowering them to lead with an internal feeling of steadiness, discernment and joy, and to empower those around them. Sheila's personal journey has led her to become a teacher who supports the awakening of the highest self and connects others to their innate wisdom. Again, welcome to the show, Sheila.
Thank you. Next time we'll do the short bio. It's a little long for the listeners.
But it's good. I feel like sometimes, depending on the show that we're doing, that
Yeah.
like all of this is like important, because I think as we've been on the air coming up on 2 years, we've brought a lot of information to people, and probably a lot of new terms for some people that aren't in this world. So, I think it is important to share the accomplishments and the things that our guests do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. No, it's an absolute pleasure to share the amazing gifts that, everybody brings to the show. So
Thank you so much.
we are here to have lots of fun today. So let's just kind of dive into this. Why do you feel healers are needed more in traditional workspaces?
This is great. So when I meet people, especially in places where I was doing a training with a large company the other day, and I talked about the importance of healing our own inner wisdom, and also that I identify as someone who is a healer. And that term is not necessarily just healing others, but it's facilitating the conditions that allow us to heal individually and in group settings, right? And this leader was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never heard of like healing in corporate America in the same sentence before." And I kind of laughed, but I was thinking like people are hungry for healing in every area of life. And they typically, when they have an opportunity to bring healing, such as just being able to breathe, to self-regulate, to access their heart, empathy, because who we're around every day either triggers kind of our past experiences that keep us in a cycle of suffering. And we also have an opportunity in a corporate place or places, even think about hospitals, where we go for healing, and many people don't necessarily feel that healing energy when they go in there. And so when we bring that type of intention in, it makes people feel maybe a little nervous at first, but then when they actually start to feel it inside of them and between other people, things start to change. It's very hard to heal alone. It's very hard to heal in a toxic work environment, toxic relationship, a toxic school environment. And so for me, in order for people to behave the way we want them to as leaders, most of us, or as kids or as teachers, we do need to have a sense of having tools that bring us into kind of a more optimal state. I consider it a healing state, where things that were wounded before start to heal rather than kind of continue to create problems. That makes sense?
Absolutely. And I love that you do so much work within corporations, because I think our focus here on the show is so much about individual health, but I don't think we take into consideration fully the mental stress and anguish that those of us that are especially in that corporate setting really have to endure, have to navigate, that we bring home with us. I know for myself, I've been out of corporate America since, I guess, about 2005 now. So it has been such a relief, and not that we don't need these corporations, but I think, the work that you're doing, and I even worked with another company years ago that was very much about getting into those environments and our political environments, because there is such chaos and crazy, especially now, because I think even the corporate environment has shifted so much now that you are really just a number in there. And we've lost sight of people.
You're right.
So,
And what's really great is when you do come into a place like a hospital, or even I've been doing some work with some local schools, but in corporations, when you teach leaders the neuroscience of like how a human being is going to improve their performance, it's like they have to feel safe. They have to feel seen, that you want for their greatest success. So if you're giving them coaching and feedback, but you're doing it in a way that has their highest good involved, that is received so much differently than like that punishing kind of energy.
Mhm.
And also one of the biggest factors is creating belonging. So when we show the slides of the brain, or we show, or we ask the leaders and we say, what's the best boss you've ever had or the worst boss you've ever had? All the qualities that they list come down to how that person made them feel. We call it personal resonance, which means when I come in and talk to you, whether I'm delivering challenging news or good news, what hormones are you producing when I leave? Are you
Mhm.
producing stress hormones? Or because I could give you challenging feedback, but if I do it in a way where my heart is connected, I'm grounded, I'm present, I'm seeing you, then what happens when you leave? It's like, okay, I know what we need to do. I feel like I can move forward, and my leader has my back. My
Mhm.
parent has my back. My partner has my back. Those simple things make all the difference, because otherwise you have people spin out. And if you ever go to a restaurant, like a crowded little restaurant on lunchtime, and you just listen to the conversations, people are talking a lot about these issues being unresolved. They didn't feel seen. Someone gave them a bad look. They left them out of a lunch. And so when we bring the science, they're like, this is so simple. We are seeing a change because after COVID, people experience so much mental health
Yes.
breakdown in corporate,
Mhm.
which costs them a lot of money. And so
Mhm.
they were like, okay, we're all struggling, even the leaders. What can we do to help people feel safe and secure, want to see people in person again? And
Mhm.
so there's been more of a focus now on mental health, mental wellness, at
Yes.
work.
Yes.
So maybe we're shifting.
Mhm. I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. We've got a little ways to go, but I think
Yeah.
we're in progress.
We're in progress.
Yes.
But I said, once we explain the neuroscience, that's one thing that totally changed. When we explain the neuroscience to top level leaders, they then have the permission to do the heart things. We call the heart things sometimes the hard things that are ultimately like the soft things.
Mhm.
But science is now science has done all this research on compassion. And so that's kind of a gateway, I call it. Yeah.
Well, I think I love that part of science or neuroscience
Mhm.
is how much of that is in alignment with the spiritual side of
Yeah.
things, which I think has been so eye-opening
Mhm.
for so many people, which I think is why this shift is really
Yeah.
kind of starting.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we don't have a ways to go, because you've got those that are steadfast in their thoughts and actions
Yeah.
and how they should operate,
Yeah.
whether it is in the best interest of
Mhm.
all or not.
Mhm.
But I like how those two are really coming together now, and
Yeah.
people are really recognizing it. It's like even in our healthcare system,
Mhm.
it's like finally you're hearing more doctors talk about gut health.
I know.
Which
I know.
for those of us that have been in this realm, that's where it all starts.
That's right.
So
That's
it's
right.
taken them, years to
It's
figure
true.
this out.
It's kind of come a long way. I mean, you're reminding me one of a qigong student who comes to class, and her husband was having a pretty significant surgery, and she was very anxious about it. So she told the story to us. She was in the hospital, and she got, she was there right to the end, and he said, "You're leaving?" And she's like, "Yes, I'm going to do qigong, and I'm going to be sending energy to myself, but to him and to you." He goes, "You do qigong?" He's a surgeon.
Yeah.
And they just did qigong in the hospital floor. They did waterfall, this pose.
Uh-huh.
And she said she just had such a heart opening, and the doctor too. And her husband was, kind of like, of course, you meet the one doctor that does qigong. And but that's an incredible story of a surgeon
Mhm.
just stopping right then and did like 10 waterfalls with her to help calm and ground the field. So
I
yeah, it's
love
finding its way
that.
in.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Oh, I so
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about understanding emotions,
Mhm.
what they can teach us, and how to work with them. Because I think that's huge, especially in the work that you do.
Mhm.
You know,
Emotions, whether you're aware of them or not, totally run the show. And so a couple of things I think that are important too. We can feel more than one emotion at a time. And when
Mhm.
we feel a lot of emotions, it's called emotional flooding at times, we can kind of dissociate and not being able to find our words. And so the nervous system is ratcheting up. So when we feel an emotion, it has a pretty big impact. It's very quickly we can have thoughts that go along with that. And then we have action urges associated with emotion. So some of those action urges might be, we can't yell, we can't run. So what do we turn towards to try to suppress or come into our center, right? That's why we have all kinds of substance use disorders, or it's reaching for something that's available to come in so that we can feel emotionally steady. We are always feeling emotion, whether we are aware of it or not. And so we kind of put them in replenishing them. All emotions are okay, but there's some emotions that replenish you, make you feel good, make your brain function, make you have the capacity to have empathy for others, help you think clearly, listen deeper, find solutions. Then there's depleting emotions that kind of are meant to you to feel when you actually don't need to think. You don't really want to feel empathy. And it's like you're fighting or fleeing. So it's kind of like the war brain a little bit. It's like that part of you that's like, I need to take an action that is going to create safety. But what happens is that so emotions come in a very soft state where most people miss that. That's when they feel the little ping in the stomach, the jaw starts to clench, they start to feel very soft. Then if they don't attend to the situation that brings their emotions more into kind of a calm, contented, safe place, they rise up. They become what we call like moderate feelings. And so then they start to get more intense. They're like, you're not paying attention to me. And they start to build, right? And if we don't have tools to kind of get to neutral or gain perspective or have a place to say, hey, I'm feeling really tense and feeling stressed. This is what happened. We co-regulate with others, which means sometimes when we tell our story, if it's a person who knows how to co-regulate, they listen, they validate, we feel safe, secure, connection, come back down. If we don't tend to those emotions, then they go into an intense state, and then it's a free-for-all. It's like when we're doing things that we wish we wouldn't have done, saying things that leave a residue, and then we have to repair, right? So a lot of the coaching I do with teams, families, or systems is like, hey, notice when we're all on that, what we call the left side of the grid, more of the depleting emotions that tend to have some intensity. How do we get it down to what we call an operationally coherent way? How do we connect, get coherent? Get on that, what we call the more replenishing side, even if it's just calm and grounding, and then talk, and then have that discussion. And so much of the work we do with teams is cleaning things up from operating on those depletional emotion sides. The other thing we can learn from emotions is like when we feel sadness, that's such an important one, because that is the way we let go of things that aren't working. So when you have that sadness comes up, it's saying that something hurts, right? And that's an emotion that a lot of people in our society do not want to feel. We're more comfortable feeling anger, right? Frustration, anxiety. And so the idea is that one of the first steps in mindfulness and mental well-being is there's some part of you it's kind of like a dual focus. Is some part of you, your wisest self, can be bigger than that situation, even if you're like freaking out in a way. Can you start to develop an awareness to like, hey, I'm really stressed and here's what I'm doing, the watcher of oneself. And then if that watcher can start to narrate, wow, in a compassionate, now this is the key, compassionate voice. Oh, you're really angry right now. Look, you're really triggered right now. Look, you're yelling right now. You're self-medicating right now. Look at that. But a compassionate, loving lens, look at the impact that that's creating for you and others. But no like blame, but it's helping you see. And then there's this part of you that's like, once you learn skills, then it's like you learn to like, before it gets to that intense state, is there another option available? It's key to addiction healing, really. It's like, I'm starting to feel that. What can I do to neutralize? And then what can I do to put myself into a more positive state of being, something that's going to help resolve those intense feelings, land me in a good place, and then I act. So this is a big part of my work because I worked in domestic violence for a long time. And what I realized is that there's a lot of people who really hurt people that they cherish and love because they have a dysregulated nervous system.
Yes.
They have those action urges that come. And then, all these traumas that were passed down. So if we can teach people how to regulate at work, so this is one of my other secret motivations. When I teach people how to regulate at work, they always bring it home and they tell me, they say, I'm using this with my teenage, I'm teaching the football players. So once they get it in a approved work workplace training that helps them communicate, solve, make more money for a corporation, they want to bring it into their home life. And then that improves health
Everything.
outcomes. Yeah.
Yes, everything. I just want to remind everybody, if
Yeah.
you're just now joining us, you're listening to Sage Advice with Melissa. We are here in the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And we have Sheila Pride here with us, helping us navigate different practices, how to, work in our physical bodies to navigate those mental health issues, along with my beautiful co-host, Maddie King Erger, which I would love you to jump in, because I feel like in our office, I am probably the least emotional of all of us. Not that I don't feel,
Right.
but I don't process in the way that my sweet emotional beings, because like we have laying on the floor some days, which even some days I need to lay on the floor. But there's lots of emotions that happen, not all the time, but I love how, because of where we are in our own practices, to be able to support one another in those moments and, co-regulate together. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm going to let this one chime in a little bit, because I know she's got lots to say.
Yeah. I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit, because from what I've learned from Sheila, even though I met her, maybe 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
You feel like a forever kind of friend when you meet you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been gleaning so much, and one of the things that you talked about in class last week was coming from this kind of middle ground space when you have the 4 quadrants. So you have kind of like the low vibration sides, and then above that you have like the higher vibration but negative emotions like anger and stuff like that.
Our ego, our little egos.
And then on the other side, it's the same, where you kind of have kind of like a baseline, peace, tranquility, and then you have like excitement. And Melissa is a pretty like even-keeled person.
Nice.
And so when you're in a space with her and you're feeling a lot of emotion, she's holding that ground.
Yeah.
And I don't think you realize how valuable that is. Because take, for example, we also have Julie. And Julie's amazing, but Julie's almost like a chihuahua. In the most like uplifting, like fun, exciting. Like if you're excited about something, she's gonna be 10 times more excited for you, and it feels so good. And like that is helpful as well. But I don't think you give yourself enough credit for how easy you make it for people to be around you, maybe no matter what they're going through. Do you think that rings true?
Yeah. So that's a great point. And so, this grid we're talking about, if you want to look it up, it's called the depletion to renewal grid. And it's designed, it's scientifically based from the HeartMath Institute. You can just Google it and see the grid to help navigate this conversation. But one of the common mistakes that, I'll give you a story. So my daughter is amazing, and she's 14. She's been my biggest teacher. And so I teach this with teams, but with families too. So I've missed her. I'm like happy to see her when it comes to 3:15, and I pick her up and I'm just like, hi, Cecilia, baby girl. I'm just like, so what we call upper right. Happy, uplifted, excited, and just the mere presence of my excitement after what she's gone through in middle school all day, navigating the dynamics of that controlled environment and kind of protected to keep herself kind of safe in a way that you do in middle school. My joy just totally, pisses her off. It makes her angry.
I was going to say, is she like, oh, really, Mom?
And so what happens is she has contempt. So I meet her with this high vibration energy, and then she meets me with like contempt, disgust, and like total annoyance. Guess where I move? I move to left side, angry. I'm your mom. Why don't you love me back? All this is happening all emotionally. And I've only learned now like what's actually happening. So I go from like producing DHA and seconds producing cortisol, all because this teenager doesn't want to connect. Where do we both end up? In the lower left side of the grid, depletion, sadness, disconnection. And so I had to learn through my training, like, how can I be what you're describing, you know, that coherent, grounded, calm baseline, which helps her regulate after her hard day, helps us co-regulate this vibration together. And then we naturally move up to this happier place together. And so when I work with leaders, we see this a lot. A lot of leaders don't take time to notice where they are on that emotional grid. They're powering through because they were trained to power through as very young people. Disregard your emotions, power through. You can't fake it because now emotions are shared. There can be measured now off your body up to 3 feet, which I think is really interesting. And they're contagious. So one of the things we did that you all didn't see is we got set for 2 to 3 minutes so that we could all get coherent and grounded before we began. If I had a bad fight with a significant other before I came in, and I didn't take a second to do that, I'm producing cortisol. You all would automatically be producing those stress hormones. I would get a little bit more calm because I'm off shedding in a way, but it's a lot to endure. And that's why when you said we take it home, we do take it home.
Absolutely.
And so you being grounded, calm, and coherent, we call that like tree roots growing down to the earth, allows everybody else who might be bouncing around the grid to kind of come down to meet you. And then everybody can rise up.
Yes. But let's address the mamas for a minute, because although I might be like that in my work environment with others, I feel like very similarly when my son was that age and even now at 23, like what goes on between the two of us, because I feel like there is a different space you're in as the mama than you are working with others that actually have some sense.
I love that. And I think this is why so many, we're so much better than we were 10 years ago, but like there's so much shame moms carry. And, you know, when I've taken my kids to the doctor, even to healer type doctors, there's always like, all the questions are like, well, why didn't you do that? Did you do this? Are you giving them all the body work? I'm like, you know, there's always this inherent cultural blame on the woman that's been always there for every mental health or physical condition, right? And so women, I think, you know, when they lose their shit, when they become very dysregulated and that side takes over, it's very, very difficult for them to process. Because so now there's a lot more discussions around how easy it is to get dysregulated, how easy it is to become where that was always like a closeted thing that was very shame-based. People didn't want to talk about. So that's a big part of my work. I have a lot of moms who come in, and when I teach in corporate America, I can't tell you how many people come and they say, I do pretty good at work, but I'm really struggling with my teenager, my 3-year-old, my 5-year-old, and the tears come. And that can last an entire lifetime unless the kid and the parent, as they go through the life cycle, know how to regulate. So all my kids, I've taught them how to regulate. All my clients know how to regulate. This is one thing, I'm 45 now, but I wish I would have learned this very young. But it's never too late, because now I can kind of help people, teach them. And, you know, so it's all about, for me, breaking intergenerational trauma that we pass forward. And so it's about, okay, I didn't know it. I did pretty well, but I learned it eventually. And I really didn't start studying this stuff deeply until I became a mom, because I wanted to do it differently. Right. And thank God I lived at a time where all this stuff was available. My mom did not live at a time when these things were available.
Unless she had really elevated parents.
Yes.
But we are going to break.
Yeah.
When we come back, I'll let you share how to get a hold of you. We'll do it again at the end of the show. But everybody, stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Great.
If you're looking for a new informative health and lifestyle show to gain knowledge and inspiration to help guide your journey to think, work, and live more powerfully, then you need to listen to Sage Advice with Melissa. Now, whether you're trying to improve your life from a mental, physical, or spiritual journey, Sage Advice with Melissa Coleman, CEO of Sage Skincare, delivers weekly advice from industry experts to provide you with insightful suggestions to allow you to thrive with a better quality of life. Melissa's mission: to guide you through the uncharted waters of health and wellness and to give you a voice to help improve your life. So be sure to tune in to Melissa. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, listeners, saying thanks to your customers is nice and polite, but expressing your gratitude in memorable and ongoing ways can boost your business. At Promo Experts LLC, we exceed our customers' expectations. For over 20 years, our product knowledge and experience has helped them with their marketing initiatives and trade show graphics. We are happy to put that experience to work for you. Quality products, great customer service, and prices are our number one priority. We work with you to find unique, creative, and new ideas that fit your image and expectations, helping you build strong relationships with your customers. When you select Promo Experts as your marketing partner, we help you to see more than the big picture. For more information about this exciting opportunity, contact Diane Carson, President, at 636-458-5241. That's 636-458-5241. Let Promo Experts help you to move your business brand beyond the bland.
Is your business struggling with getting found online? Are you having a hard time finding a marketing company that you can trust? Look no further than Vivial. At Vivial, we are experts at helping connect buyers to consumers by our innovative marketing strategies with proven methods that help businesses connect to their target demographic. For a free consultation, call Anthony today at 314-437-1906. That's 314-437-1906.
Have you always wanted to write your own book but don't know where to start? Publishing Concepts, a publishing company located right here in St. Louis, offers everything from consulting, book printing, copyrights, ISBNs and barcodes, print book layout, ebook and iBook layout, graphic design, cover design, ghostwriting, typing and editing, distribution, marketing, and more for an affordable price. Visit publishingconceptsllc.com or just Google Publishing Concepts to get started today, or call 314-781-8880. That's 314-781-8880. Publishing Concepts. We help you sell more books.
Welcome back to part 2 of Sage Advice with Melissa. I am your host, Melissa Coleman. We are here today with my beautiful co-host, Maddie King-Erger, and the beautiful Sheila Pride. We're talking about mental health practices today and how that looks in our real worlds, and how we can navigate all the mental stress and all of the things that we take on in our daily lives. So welcome back to part 2. I just want to let you have this opportunity, because we didn't have a chance as we were leaving for break, to share with everybody how they can reach you, find you online, and connect with you.
Thank you. So the best way to reach out to me is probably through LinkedIn. You could find me, Sheila Pride, there. Our website is called don't forget but the Moksha, MOKSHA group.com. And, we work internationally. We work with teams all over the world, as well as lead retreats for folks. And then I have kind of a small private practice here in St. Louis. And so you can find me there, and I'd love to hear from you.
And in the park.
Oh yeah. If you live in St. Louis, I do a lot of, somatic. We haven't talked about somatics.
Yes, we are.
A somatic based healing, and somatics basically just means issues are in our tissues. And so it's hard to heal the body with the mind through thinking about things, but we can do practices that allow the issues that are kind of compartmentalized. So the idea in the trauma world is that we have difficult experiences and the heart kind of receives that. And if it's too much to integrate, we can kind of dissociate, kind of almost not even go somewhere else during that experience. But the body does remember, and the body keeps score, and it kind of places it in different parts of the body until later, hopefully at a time where we're more resourced to be able to process that with a therapist and with help. But I remember as a social worker, I was amazed to hear that more women sought body workers for care than therapists if they experienced assault. And I was like,
that's
wow.
interesting.
And that's actually what totally changed my career, is when I worked in domestic violence. I had 3 clients that we had done everything possible in the social services world, free housing, cell phones, advocacy, safety planning. And they weren't able to kind of create agency for themselves. You know what I mean? And I was just waiting for them these 3 really tough clients to, show up on the news someday that they had been, killed or seriously injured. And in 1 to 2 months' time, all 3 of these women on their own accord, I knew nothing about body work. I wasn't a body worker at that time or somatic healer at that time. I noticed that they were making decisions differently. They were walking differently. They were setting boundaries in a different way. And I remember being like, well, what are you doing? And one of them was working with a somatic emotional resolution therapist trained through the Upledger Institute. Another one was working with a local shamanic practitioner. I didn't even know what shamanic practitioner was. And I forgot who the third woman was working with, but they were doing body-based healing. And at that time, I didn't even know that I was developing full-blown what they call vicarious trauma, which means when I was storing all of the trauma stories of really intense violence. So I would go to bed at night, close my eyes, and see the images that I was, and then that became part of my physical body. And that took me about 5 years to heal that, but that didn't come from healing it through cognitive therapy. It came from working with some amazing yoga teachers, somatic therapists, and where my body finally felt safe to start to release. And then some, shamanic practices were really helpful in my journey, and my teachers that came to help me heal that. So that's how I wanted my own healing, but it was inspired by seeing people that I had all these tools from kind of the Western perspective, advanced training, a lot of passion, and it wasn't doing it for everybody.
I think that's so amazing what you said as far as the women that were working with the body workers, because I feel like all the therapists that we've had on this month, including yourself, that there's such a shift happening within the world of therapy. And even our next guest that's going to wrap up Mental Health Awareness Month, Dr. Rachel Glick, she is very much about that spiritual component even, and the meditation piece, because it is truly what sets us free. Not that talk therapy is not good to a certain degree and not needed, but there is so much more release that you get within that body work. And even if it's just the simple technique of breathing, like there is so much power just in that.
Yeah, I agree. And, one of the things that I experienced is they call it in the shamanic world, it's this concept called soul retrieval. And it's called other things in other traditions. But what happens is when we have something really difficult happen, it can also be from things we don't even remember, right? That some part of our soul, our being, is kind of exiled or kind of lost, right? And it's always there, but it's like we're not integrated, right? And so when a person shows up for somatic therapy, that little part that was kind of exiled, that 8-year-old, that 3-year-old, whatever it was, when you get enough coherence, when you have enough trust, when your inner being, called the inner physician, the inner healer, is like, oh, you realize that there's some part of me that can help you heal, right? When that reconnection occurs, that there's some part of you that's never been touched by any trauma, that's whole and perfect, that is a beautiful moment, because people can sometimes feel like they're broken, they're not whole, they judge themselves by the mistakes they've made. So first, realizing that there's something in us that's wise and lovable and has all the answers that we need, and we lead people through a journey to reclaim that. And then once that's reclaimed, these other parts that we've exiled in a way start to say, how about me? How about me? Are you ready? And what somatic therapy as well as shamanic journey work teaches you is that once you're safe and established with support and that belonging, you can travel back and literally rework those scenarios. And so I remember working with just a quick story of a man who had chronic neck and jaw pain for years. And I taught him yoga for a long time, and he came in, he says, I really need this pain to go away. So we're working on him, and there's this point of the body where it gets really still, right? And everything got really still. And he had an image of his father who passed when he was young. And his dad was like a firefighter type, strong. And he got, it was ALS. It was something that was very deteriorating for a 7-year-old boy to see. And the boy, they wheeled him into his birthday party with all his friends. And he felt embarrassed and also very scared to see his dad and all his friends. And he kind of turned away and they wheeled his dad out, and then his dad passed, and he never got to say a formal goodbye. This all surfaced when we were just holding space. And the beauty of somatic work and soul retrieval work is that with deep support, he traveled back to his young boy self. Now he's this older man. He took that little boy out of the scenario, that situation. He comforted him. He kind of became the father for his younger self, told him all the things that he'd be okay, and he was lovable. And it was understandable why he walked away. He was scared. But then he got an opportunity to rework it. So then they travel back, and he goes in, and the inner being shows. So I'm just holding space while he's narrating, and he jumped on his dad's lap in the redo he gave himself. And his dad was able in this imagery to hold him. And they had a dialogue back and forth. It's kind of like a journey of, I love you. I'm sorry that I'm having to leave you so early. And he just wept and cried. I cried, and then his whole neck jaw completely relaxed. Wow. And he'd been carrying that for 40 years. That memory.
We carry so much in our head and neck.
Yeah.
And just speaking from experience.
Yeah. So that's how somatic therapy works. The material comes forward for you to do the work, and then you can kind of be free, and you can rework the past in a way that allows you to be free. Yeah.
I think I so love that about so many of the different modalities that are available to us now, because, being a Reiki master, that is part of that training too, and helping somebody through that with, those soul level traumas that have happened, that you have that opportunity to go back to that moment in time and totally rewrite it and get relief from that moment. And it is really a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I
can feel that from you. I want a Reiki session. I can feel that from
you. She doesn't really understand the complete value, and I'm kind of over it. I'm like, it's enough, Melissa.
I think she's ready to take the bat.
I am.
Swat me a couple
remember
times.
when I had your hand?
Yes.
We were given presents from Barry, and he talks about cleansing your space, and he brought us these beautiful gifts, and one of them is this long wooden what does he call them?
I forgot what he called it.
I don't remember. It's a long wooden thing. It has a crystal at the bottom and the end,
specific,
but it's a
crystal.
hand.
Wow.
So you can use it as a back scratcher.
Wow.
But I'm about to just be holding over Melissa and say, if you don't let your divinity come out every day and be helping people the way you're supposed to, I've got this. I just wanted to kind of go back to what you were saying and break it down, because I say hold space all the time. And I think people are like, what does that really mean? But also another point is, I'm wondering if you were saying that you were literally holding a physical space on his body, because I think that is key to this experience. Because when you were speaking about this, it reminded me of the therapy, like the rapid eye movement, where you are going through a traumatic experience. You're literally walking through it, but you're able to stay in the moment and not go full on into the trauma response, because you have that engagement of the eyes. And it sounds like you holding a space on his body is doing that same exact thing. So will you just
try to be simple and quick, but
I don't think any of this is
I know,
right?
right? So in one level, holding space means that you're regulated. So this was something that when I work with people, therapists, healers, teachers, doctors, they are very dysregulated and they power through, and then it affects the success of their patient's outcome. For sure it does. So for many years, I think I was dysregulated, even while treating others. Isn't that interesting? So part of me really taking responsibility is like, no matter what happens, how do I prioritize getting in a calm, coherent state, meaning an emotional state that is not just neutral, but is calm, ease, and I feel connection to something greater, right? So when we can show up for people, no matter what they're going through, and we have that, part of that's positive regard. So we have to hold ourselves in this positive regard and them. And that can be interesting when people share things that are triggering, right? We can lose holding space and go into survival a bit, but all pretending that we're good, right? So holding space is about learning how to regulate oneself through the journey of a therapeutic process. In a cranial sacral therapy or somatic emotional resolution or Reiki, but cranial perspective, you learn how to feel these rhythms of the body.
That's an amazing.
When you
practice.
hit what they call significance detector, it's like boom, 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 and people's eyes will automatically rapid eye movement. You're not training them. And then that's when you feel a lot of the emotional expression or the images come. And so it's about just working with this cranial sacral rhythm, with the ways that the body, and once the body learns, like, oh, this is what's happening, usually the body is like, here's the next 15 things we're going to do. And you start processing before you even show up. And so if you want to know about working with someone in your area, you can go to the Upledger Institute. There's something also called somatic experiencing that is different than doing table work. I've done both. They're both very valuable. I love Peter Levine's work. But I prefer, and I'm trained in the Upledger method, which is kind of based on the body, where, you do a lot of work to hold the sacrum, the back heart, and you get into the jaw. And sometimes you can even get into opening this avenue of expression where we've been told to shut up and stuff it so many times in life that because that's one interesting, when we want healing so bad. And then what I see over and over again is so much emotion that wants to come to be released, resolved. You see everybody tighten their face, shut down, purse lip, and they're like, no, because they're afraid that it won't end. They're afraid that they won't be met, that vulnerability. And so being able to get support, so when the emotions do calm, having people who won't, think about, if you are around really sensitive people, even mothers who are very sensitive, and you are crying, and instead of them really feeling they could soothe you, they would try and fail. And then the way that they could feel better was either to abandon or yell to get you to stop crying because they were panicked inside, right? So what we really learn when we teach holding space is and so one technique, if I'm working with somebody, is when they're listening to their kid or their mate, can they just bring their attention to their heart? Like even right now, while you're driving or listening, just can you listen with your own attention dropping into your heart and just slow your breathing down? And you watch it. So it's kind of dual focus. You're aware of what's happening in your room, but you're also slowing that breath down to a 5-count inhale, 5-count exhale. And when you get that breath to naturally, no deep breathing, get to a 5-count inhale, 5-count exhale, you can be pretty sure that your brain is in a coherent rhythm, right? And that you could probably lose it if someone says the wrong thing, but you're going to get a longer period of time where you're able to stay engaged. And you start to feel that like you're not able to hold space. So if I'm working with a client who's a lot of trauma material, what I've learned now is I say, you know what? We've been doing this for a while. I'm putting on the brakes for me and for you. Right? So let's just work with this body of work, and let's spend more time in regulation, more time of you feeling good. So one of the common mistakes people make in therapy is they process too much too quickly once they start, and they leave in a dysregulated state. So one of the maturing I've had is to go slow and have success around that body of work, and then learn how to feel good in between your sessions, right? And I think when I was approaching therapy, I was like, I want to do it all, do it quick. And then that was hard when I came home and I had to be a mom and a wife and a teacher. And so go slow and steady wins the race,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody, if you're just now joining us, you're listening to Sage Advice with Melissa. I'm your host, Melissa Coleman. We're here today with Sheila Pride and my co-host, Maddie King Erger. We're talking about good mental health practices to help navigate our stress and just all the anxieties that we experience in today's life. I really want to talk, about the Qigong and somatic and yoga therapies that you do, because just having experienced your session yesterday in the park, it was probably by far, and I do love yoga because that's very new in my world as well, but just that easy movement that we were doing was so exhilarating and relaxing and like in such a different kind of way. And I love breath work. Like for me, that is my jam. And I get so much relief and release from doing that. But share about that and how working through trauma is so helpful utilizing those practices.
Yeah. What a great question. So my journey, of course, I started in my early 20s with yoga. and did that for about 20 years. And then did somatics for my healing and Reiki. I learned Reiki young, and like 16, my stepmom taught me. So that was always part of it. Meditation was just painful because I had so much trauma material that I just didn't want to address. It all came forward. So seating meditation was never possible for me for many, many years. And so I needed to find moving meditations that would help me learn to still my mind, to feel safe and good in my body. Because I was a runner, I did all the intense things because I was really trying to clear my mind, but I didn't know how to be with the difficult things, right? And so I had all these great yoga teachers that were masters that helped me, but I found Qigong because I got sick and I got shingles, and I was caretaking for someone. I didn't know what shingles looked like. I got shingles, and it didn't go away after the 6 weeks or whatever. And I had the bumps went away, but the pain just was so intense through my whole body for about 8 months. And I had so much anxiety. And anytime I had difficult emotions, it got worse. So my emotional body was really tied to this virus having potency in my body. And so I started doing Qigong. I found a teacher, David Kuhn. He's one of my heart teachers. He's in North Carolina. And I did Qigong every day for 40 minutes with him, and my shingles went away after 2 weeks. The shingle neuralgia pain went away. And I had spent thousands of dollars seeing, even getting acupuncturists, all those things, because Qigong really works on the energy body. And the other thing that I love about Qigong, and for me, my experience with shamanism from my shamanic teachers, is they teach you that you're not alone, that there is a natural world all around you supporting you, everything from the sun to the clouds to this air, the trees in the park, things that we just are in our space that we kind of maybe take for granted. And they teach you how both of those to connect, to form like a sense of relationship. And what's interesting, I also do biofeedback training. If people connect to a biofeedback monitor and they are able to be led into a state where they're connected with nature, right? Then you can see their heart waves get very coherent. Their heart rate variability improves just by laying on the ground, for 9 minutes, your brain waves start to match the delta rhythms of Earth. So science is now taking this from being woo-woo for people. The other thing I noticed for people who started to feel like when you do practices like Qigong that start to increase the amount of saliva in the throat, make you feel calm. If you've lived in a very stressed out environment your whole life, that is your baseline. Yeah. So in our conditioning, if we move from a very stressed out state and we start to feel safe, that's like a very dangerous place for people who've had trauma, because you're waiting for your guard is down. So in the beginning, why I love teaching Qigong and heart math, you're teaching people that they can feel safe in the world and in their body for longer periods of time, which over time creates a more optimal baseline in the nervous system. They don't have to have that fight, flight, survival energy with them at all times. There's a lot of compassion, because what worked for us when we could have been in one traumatic event, and now that's the mode of operation till we do something to shift that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just like blown away, because it's so true how much our younger years and certain events impact our ability to function, as adults. And, these modalities, I encourage anybody listening, if you are suffering, struggling, whatever you're feeling inside, to really look at alternative ways to help your mind, your body, your spirit, because it's just imperative to address like all of these things on this level.
And I would say the obstacle for people is they think, if you find a teacher who's very rigid and like, you have to believe like me, you have to do it exactly like this.
Run.
But finding a teacher who says, here's a way to practice, make it your own, let it live inside of you. That's kind of the old model of leadership, and as well as in the healer world. And so, look for these practices that allow you to keep your religious beliefs, whatever they are, that allow you to, if they evolve and change over time, that's your business. But like that, there's not a dogma associated with any of the traditions that you study, and also that it's connected to a living tradition. So a tradition that's, that has agency to it, meaning like there's time and people have done their own work. So there's this idea like we can't really bring people further than we've gone, right? And so, you know, whoever you're working with, just like, what is their self-care? I had a chiropractor who was going to adjust me. He was so stressed out and he's going to snap my neck. I was like, hey, dude. I was like, I was like, hey, you are not coherent. And he was, you know, he's like, what do you mean? I said, I can see and feel your stress level. I said, I'm trained in this. I can see your respiration pattern is a minute, a half a second in and 2 seconds out. Like, can we do a little bit of breathing together? And he felt embarrassed at first. He was like, okay. And I'm older, which helped. You know, I said the same thing to a dentist because I was like, that's also how we get trauma when people force energy into us and they're dysregulated. The body feels that and guards and protects. And so I've just been really brave to say, like, I want to get treatment from you, but can you take 2 minutes? I've never had nobody say no. And usually they say, can you teach my staff? Yes, I will.
Love to.
But it is important that we have like, this is our space, our sacred temple. Then when we invite people in and we're paying them a lot of money, that and sometimes it's really important to give your healers and your therapists feedback. I know we are scared to do that, but sometimes people struggle with burnout, vicarious trauma. They're not aware of their unintentional impact. So if in a caring, loving way, we can say like, hey, I really love getting work from you, but lately, here's how I've been feeling. Are you taking care of yourself? They may not give the best response in the moment, but they heard. And then that can create a real shift rather than you just not booking again. You know what I mean? People sometimes need that little even written feedback.
And just if you're feeling that when you go into a practitioner, whether it's your nails, your hair, your whatever, if you're feeling something, you need to listen to it. Because you don't want that energy put on you. I've walked out of places before I've really gotten into my own spiritual path to recognize it, but I knew that you were not going to touch me today.
Wow.
And
that's amazing. Do you know, like, I never hear that. Like, that's amazing because most people pay the money. They're dysregulated the whole time.
And then you're mad when you leave.
And then they talk about it for months and months, sometimes years.
Exactly.
So you prevented a lot of stress for yourself by getting up and saying not today.
Because you have to think about that. I am so sad to say we are coming up on the end of the show, but I want you to take another moment to share with everybody how to find you, and hopefully we'll have time to share a little snippet of information. And before we go.
So my business website is called themokshagroup.com. That's really targeted for teams, hospitals, corporations. We've been doing that type of work. I call it like the heart work, bringing in all these Eastern and kind of practices that allow people's nervous systems to show up in the way that creates optimal performance. And then personally, on LinkedIn is a nice way to connect with me. Sheila Pride. You can find me on LinkedIn in St. Louis, Missouri. And I will be putting together some more. So my work has been moving a little bit from corporate to more. I've been asked a lot to do personal retreats for folks that companies just aren't quite there.
I'm ready to.
So in this next few months, I will be offering more community-based trainings that people can kind of opt into.
Okay.
And that'll be on the website.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I just want to thank you so much for being here. It's been a real pleasure. We will definitely have you back again because I feel like there's so much to still talk about and share and help everybody. It's been very eye-opening having you here, and I'm so grateful.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And it felt like 3 minutes.
I know, doesn't it? All right, everybody. We are going to be back with you next week. We'll have Dr. Rachel Glick with us talking about relationships in the month of mental health awareness. So as we like to leave you, health is a state of mind. Wellness is a state of being. Be good, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Great. I'll be the sunshine in the rain. There you go. Well, we got another great show